Patchwork Heart Ministry and Fiat Ministry Network invite you to discover your mission. A brand new in-depth monthly video series featuring engaging Catholic speakers who will challenge you to live your life abundantly. For only $25 a month, you will receive a personal monthly mission, including 3 full-length inspirational talks that build upon a new theme each month. Sign up for the Discover Your Mission tier at patreon.com/patchworkheartministry today.
Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Ann DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us. And good evening, everybody, and welcome to Sowing Hope. I am Bill Snyder, and this is Sowing Hope, and it's great that you've joined us here for this episode tonight. We're so blessed that you are with us, and I'm blessed I'm with you. So thank you so much for joining us and being with us tonight. We are super excited that you are here, and I am always joined by my co-host Ann DeSantis. Ann, welcome in, and thank you so much for co-hosting tonight.
You're welcome, of course. Great to be here. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well.
Yes. We hope you're all doing well, staying safe, staying home when you can still, even though some of these orders are being lifted off. Remember to stay safe out there, and we're so blessed that you've joined us tonight. And Ann, I know you've got another awesome guest for us tonight, and why don't you introduce him?
Yes, he is awesome, and I'm very blessed. We have Father Matt Guckin. He is with the Office of Catechetical Formation. He is the director, and he is also the acting pastor of St. Francis de Sales Parish in West Philadelphia. So welcome, Father Matt. Great to have you here with us.
Thank you, Ann. Thanks for the invitation. It's great to be with everyone.
Yes, you have so much to share, and I'm excited. Now, of course, you were one of my guests on another TV show that I hosted before. In fact, you were my first guest, so on the positive side. And now I'm hosting another show, which I'll just make a little announcement about, Journeys in Faith on Fiat Ministry Network on Friday evenings at 8:30. So, but tonight is just a great night. We're so blessed to have you here with us, and would love for you to share everything that's happening in your life right now, because not only are you the director of the Office of Catechetical Formation in our own archdiocese here, but as I mentioned, you are also an acting pastor. So how is life for you right now, Father?
Incredibly rewarding, rich, beautiful, and busy, I would say. So I'm sort of splitting my time between being a pastor here in West Philadelphia of a very eclectic parish in West Philadelphia. We're right on the edge of University City, which is a section of West Philadelphia, which is comprised of 3 universities: the University of the Sciences, which is right here in my parish, the Drexel University, and the University of Pennsylvania. So typically it's very alive with young people, but since the lockdowns began, the students have all gone home. And so there are a lot of university types, a lot of university personnel who are in the parish, and then a lot of just regular folks who are just awesome people who are here in the parish as well. So that's taking really most of my time, and we transitioned. We had to transition just to keep our community together. We had to transition almost overnight to an entirely different platform of evangelization. By that I mean we had to transition to evangelization using social media. And I think we were successful at doing that. But when I began here at the parish, 2 weeks after I started in the parish, the lockdowns began. And so I quickly assembled a crisis response team who, with the stated purpose of keeping our parish family together, and then with 4 specific goals. Number one, liturgy and prayer, which I think we've been able to do, making use of the various social media platforms. Another was uh, service and outreach. And then there's the important component of finance and keeping that going, because I wouldn't have a computer if it weren't for our finances. And then in addition to that, the job that I have for the Office of Catechetical Formation, serving the church in a broader way, in trying to catechize schools, colleges, universities. And so, for example, we just published yesterday a virtual May procession involving all of our elementary schools throughout the Archdiocese. So we're just trying to do the best that we can. I had a discussion with our Archbishop when this all began, and the advice he gave me, I think, was the best advice, and that is do your best. And we've tried to do that here.
Well, I think you have. Um, and based on what I've seen on, as you said, social media and just on all the outreach that you do. And particularly, I'm thinking of something that you did in the last month or so called 10 Plagues for 10 Days at 10 a.m. with the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. And it was something that I really look forward to today. I wondered if you could share a little bit on that, because I know it's still available probably on YouTube and people can still take a look at it.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. What happened was, again, I tried to make use of social media, right? And so we have a little prayer group at 7 a.m. every day on Facebook Live, and anywhere from 25 to, in the morning, probably like 45 people gathered for prayer. And I just do morning prayer from the Office of Readings. And then in the evening at 9 o'clock, we have night prayer. And we get about anywhere from 30 to 75 people hop on board. Jesus said, feed my sheep. He never said count them. So
right.
I'm very aware of that, but I am human as well. So, I like to look for some measuring sticks as to whether or not we should continue doing, and that seems to be one of them. So one of the things we were doing in the 9 days leading up to Divine Mercy Sunday, beginning on Good Friday, I started to do at 3 o'clock the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. And then on the Feast of Divine Mercy, I met a young woman in our parish here in church. We had the church open, and she said, I'm really going to miss not doing the chaplet with you. What are you going to do next? You see that? No good deed ever goes unpunished. And these are all ways of holding me accountable to a life of prayer. So I put it back in her court. I said, Teresa, what do you suggest we do? And she thought about it honestly for 10 seconds. And she said, how about a series on the 10 plagues?
Hmm.
And I just thought, wow, that's really brilliant. And the fact that the idea came to her in church, I thought sort of validated as being inspired. And so I started doing some research on the 10 plagues, and then our office was able to turn that around really quick. And then it got some legs. I mean, the Archbishop picked up on it and promoted it for us. And then somebody from the Catholic channel on Sirius Radio heard it. He called me, asked if I would be on a show, Gus Lloyd, and so it just sort of snowballed a little bit. But the best thing for me was I started learning more about the plagues, and I tried to situate it in the context of COVID-19. And then use that as a platform to talk about such things as the pride of Pharaoh and how it's not dead. That's alive within all of us. myself at the top of that list. So I used it as an opportunity to talk about a variety of things. And then when that was over, people asked right away, well, what's the next thing? And I thought that was a lot of work. I need to back up because I have a parish to run here. And then just recently, as we were talking before the show began, I do enjoy doing that, Anne. I do enjoy doing it because I learned so much from it, I started thinking about, and then today really started researching a series on the devil. And I know that sounds, we just don't speak like that typically, unless we're joking around. But I think one of my favorite books is C.S. Lewis' The Screwtape Letters. I honestly, I probably read it 30 times in my life. And so I know how insidious the devil is in my own life. So I started to research that, and I think that'll be coming out pretty soon.
Hey, I will look forward to that. And I want to make a shout out to the people who are listening to please check out 10 Plagues for 10 Days on YouTube. I think it's probably on the Archdiocese of Philadelphia website or YouTube channel or somewhere, right, Father? Because yeah, it was so well done.
Thank you. It was just Bishop Delamain, an auxiliary bishop, an assistant bishop here in Philadelphia, was here at the parish yesterday, and he brought it up. He said I didn't see them all, but what I saw I really liked. So I thought that was a validation of all the work that we did for it. As far as there are 10 videos, 10 minutes at a clip. Right. So I think it's accessible. I think it's palatable. I don't think it's overwhelming. And they can be found on my own YouTube channel, Father Matt Guckin at YouTube.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Can I say the one thing that struck me, aside from the catechetical piece and the religious and the prayerful piece, was just that the graphics and everything were just so well done too. Honestly, really, it was professionally done.
Thank you.
So well.
I should have worked on Madison Avenue, I think. That's
oh,
well, it's funny. My best friend since first day of freshman year of high school, Chris Judd, he has said that a number of times to me. He said, you should have worked on Madison Avenue or comedy writing or something like that.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a gift that I have, is creativity. And I say that truly in all humility. Humility just simply means being honest. And maybe I'm wrong, but I do like that. Like when Teresa said to me, it's something on the 10 plagues, I thought right away, like 10 plagues, 10 days, 10 minutes at 10 o'clock. Just something that was it doesn't have to be 10 o'clock, but to watch it. But yeah, I think I am, I wish I could retain theology as well as be creative, but yeah, it's what the internet's for.
Yeah, that's right. Thank God for Google, right? in some ways, not in every way, but anyway, yeah, that's a great topic. And like I said, I invite people to connect with him. It's Father Matt Guckin. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, he's the director of the Office of Catechetical Formation in my own archdiocese here, the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Now, I know that you have a lot to tell us about a specific saint, and you had sent me a book. It's Saint Juniper Serra and the California Missions. I know that you took a trip, I guess it was maybe, a couple years ago, and you learned so much. You have a lot to share on this saint. So please just share whatever you can about it, Father.
Sure. Thank you very much. I could talk about this forever. Anytime my friends who I made out there in California or who I had out there send me pictures of places they are, my heart is flooded with nothing but great emotion. It's just so, it was such a powerful time in my life. So I was 20 years ordained, and I've had a number of different jobs in the Archdiocese. And so I've been an assistant pastor, I've been a full-time teacher, I've been a campus minister, and And then I've been in administration for the past 5 years. So I applied for and received permission to make a sabbatical and when I first, the idea was actually pitched to me by my spiritual director, Father Herb Sperger. He said, why don't you make a sabbatical? Now's a good time. And I said, I would love to. I don't know what I would do on a sabbatical. What am I going to do? Watch football the whole time? Which
At
I
least you're
could.
honest.
So what happened was my spiritual director said, well, what interests you? And I said immediately, I said the California missions. And the reason why is this. I'm a graduate of Penn State, and when after I graduated from the college, from the university, I moved down to Washington, D.C. And I was doing a lot of traveling, working for a consulting company, and quite frankly, it's very lonely. When you're 22 or 23 years old, it sounds great, but then in and out of airports is hard, to be honest with you. But I remember I had a client around Dana Point, California. I was staying overnight in Dana Point, California, which is probably like halfway between LA and San Diego. And I was over a weekend. I was staying there. And so it was by myself, and I was driving around, and I literally stumbled upon a mission, San Juan Capistrano. And so I went into the mission, and I was like, wow, this is something I was not aware of at all. But those memories stayed with me. And anytime I've traveled to California to visit friends or to on business back in the day, I always made it a point to visit various missions. I don't know, it just it's such a life of courage that these missionaries had. So when my spiritual director said, what would you like to do? I immediately thought of the California missions. And I said, well, what would I do? And he said, you're a creative guy. Go make it happen. And so I have friends out there, some of whom are priests. I started making connections, and then wound up, it had to be providential, because the person who was going to be directing me on studying the missions, and in particular, St. Junipero Serra, was the postulator for the cause of Serra. Serra was just canonized in 2015 when Pope Francis was in Washington, D.C. And so it's through a series of connections. Father Ken Lavaroni, who's himself is a Franciscan, wound up agreeing to be my director. And then I needed a place to stay. And he wound up saying, let me speak with the pastor at San Carlos Borromeo Mission in Carmel, California. He said, I think he has an extra room for you. Well, Anne, have you ever been to Carmel, California, by any chance?
I have not. And if when I was in California, if I did go there, maybe I just drove by. I don't know. I would say probably not.
Honestly, it's probably, and I'm not making this up, and I've done a lot of traveling. It's got to be one of the most spectacular places on the face of the earth.
Father. I totally agree with you.
Have you been there, Bill?
I have, yeah. It's unbelievable. It's a beautiful place. My uncle lived in San Francisco for a while, actually a lot of his life, and I went out and visited him, and he was like, take a drive down and go see Carmel, and man, that is one beautiful place.
It is beautiful. Well, Bill, I was lucky, and Ann, I was lucky. So the pastor at the mission, which is only about not even a quarter of a mile from the ocean, gave me a room to stay in, and provided I would help with daily mass and Sunday mass, which is going to say mass anyway, not a biggie.
Right.
So I used that as my home base, and then there's 21 missions up and down the coast that Junipero Serra and his successors established, and those missions became the founding of great economic centers, like San Francisco began as the mission of St. Francis of Assisi, Santa Barbara, the mission of St. Barbara, San Diego, Los Angeles, they all began as missions. And so I got a chance to study them and study the life of Junipero Serra, who is the father of the missions and really the father of the state of California as we know it. And Serra, he happens to be buried at the mission in Carmel, St. Charles Borromeo, St. Carlos Borromeo. And it was just such a great time. And then I wrote a book, which I passed on to you, Anne.
Yes, thank you so much.
Chance to look at. It's I could talk for hours. So I don't even know which direction to start here. I mean, if you want to say what was the best part, I would say
that's a good
all
one.
The people I met. As Bill mentioned, I mean, it's just a magnificent place in terms of beauty. I just saw some pictures. I was going through my Facebook feed right before we began here, and I saw some pictures of some friends had posted right on Pebble Beach. A couple was getting married, and I could just stare at it forever. It's just so beautiful. And then going to the different missions, and they're all very unique, and they all have different histories. 2 of them are state parks right now. Some of them are active parishes. Some of them are dying parishes. Some are in bustling cities like Mission San Francisco, which is, in the mission district of San Francisco. Others are in far remote places like St. Anthony of Padua, which is in Holland, California. So you see like different things, and you see like if you could read one chapter of the book, and Bill, I can send you a copy as well. It would be the one I'm most proud of, which is toward the end, Junipero Serra and the New Evangelization.
Yes, you told me about that. It's at page 113, I think, right?
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because when we talk about the new evangelization, it's no different than the old evangelization, but our tools are different, right? It's proclaiming the good news of Jesus Christ, and so what Serra did, for example, was when Serra got to, and let me back up a little bit. One of the things that piqued my interest about the canonization of Junipero Serra is this, and I don't want to go too far afield politically speaking, but I think it bears noting. The criticism of Junipero Serra, and there is a lot of criticism of his canonization because it's lumped in with that terrible era of colonialization. Okay? So Serra's criticized highly as if he himself was a colonialist. Serra was interested in evangelization, not colonialization. So the criticism of Junipero Serra and his canonization from a political standpoint comes from the left.
Okay.
He was canonized by Pope Francis, who, to some extent at least, is a man of the left. So the fact that Francis was the one who canonized Serra, I found to be very intriguing. And so, when you go out there, if you go out there and you study his life, if you read my book, you first of all, you realize that Serra is still criticized, very much so. Some of the missions are still vandalized. That includes Carmel. That includes Mission Santa Barbara. He kind of gets a disproportionate share of the blame of colonialization, which I cover in my book. Having said that, the culture into which Junipero Serra went was a pagan culture. They hadn't heard of the gospel. They hadn't heard of Jesus Christ. They hadn't heard the Spanish language. I think as we try to evangelize this culture, I'm not so sure they know who Jesus Christ is. I don't think they understand our language. So what Serra had to do was, Serra had to learn their culture. He had to learn their language. And he had to live out Christianity in a way that attracted the Native Americans out there. And by the way, the two I interviewed while I was out there, and you can read it in my book, they preferred to be called Indians to this day, which
Is that right?
Which is counterintuitive. I can remember the one I was interviewing, Andy Galvan, in San Francisco. We were at the lunch restaurant there, and I kept calling him a Native American, and he said, "Father, I really appreciate if you would call me an Indian." I said, "Okay." It just is kind of counterintuitive.
Right, exactly.
So Sarah had to learn their culture. It takes a great amount of patience and diligence, learn their culture, including their language, in order to proclaim the good news to them. I think, Bob and Ann, I think that's where we are right now with the culture. Yeah. I think we don't acquiesce to the culture. We don't cave into the culture, but we have to learn it. We have to be patient with it. We have to learn, be convinced of the gospel of ourselves, and we have to serve the people.
And we have to engage in it, right? There's an engagement level with it too, Father.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just a matter of, it's not at all a matter of imposing Christianity on the culture. That is a recipe for failure if we do that. Instead, it's proposing the Christian message to others in all of its beauty. Which leads me to another topic I'd like to talk about. That is beauty. When you look at the California missions, they're gorgeous. The Franciscans, first of all, have a great eye for real estate. But one of the things that Sarah insisted upon was a garden. And he would plant in the garden flowers. And he would use music. In other words, he would employ beauty to attract the Indians to Christianity. And the reason I think that's so important is if we go back to the 4th century, I don't know if either of you have ever read the Confessions of Augustine. But Augustine, who was, and we have a lot of Augustines in our society today, right?
Oh yeah. That Confessions is a transformative book. It really is. It's a wonderful book to read. I mean, any Catholic should pick that up. Any person should pick that up and read it. It's
That's
transformative.
Right.
And do you know where I was introduced to the Confessions of Augustine? And I went to Catholic grade school and high school.
Where's that?
It was at Penn State.
Wow. Philosophy class?
It was a class in Western literature. And it was the first time I had ever been introduced to St. Augustine. But what Augustine writes in there, he talks about what it is that attracted him to Christianity. And he writes this: "O beauty, ever ancient, ever new, late have I loved thee." So it was beauty that attracted Augustine. And I think when we look out into the world, I point out into the streets in West Philadelphia, there are a lot of Augustines in our world. I think in too many ways, we're still trying to evangelize as if we're evangelizing the Aloysius Gonzagas of the world. But we're not. We're trying to evangelize Augustines, and I think we can learn a lot from someone like Junipero Serra. I don't know if that all made sense, but in giving you an overview of what I did while I was out there.
No, it's fascinating.
It's just great. And I'm inviting people. I'm looking at this PDF that you sent me, Father, St. Junipero Serra and the California missions. And I would ask you, for people who are listening, can you tell us if they'd like to read this book? Is it available? I forgot to tell you something, too. The other night we had Father Stephen DeLacy on our call. And now forgive me, Father DeLacy, if you're listening, but I think he wanted me to ask you something about the book, whether it was like when it was going to be finished or something like, yeah, you're laughing. I forgot what it was, but you'll have to tell me.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's funny. I really can't publish it because there's way too much plagiarism, but I only plagiarize from the best.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I gave a copy to the last Archbishop, Archbishop Koo, and as you can see, the the photos in there are beautiful. They're stunning, and some of the artwork is amazing. But I couldn't use that for resale. I'm willing to give it to anybody to learn, and I think it's pretty accessible. The book. I don't think there's like a lot of. I'm not capable of high theology, so. But there are too many pictures that I got off the internet for it that it would cost me a fortune to.
Right. Yeah, to go and get all the rights, right? To be able to
get all the
publish it,
rights
yeah.
on that. So
There is something to be said for royalty free, right?
Yes. Oh, we deal with it
Bill,
all the
I know
time.
you know what I mean by that too.
I do. That's what Father DeLacy was talking about, because he has a copy of it as well. And he said the same thing. A lot of people have asked me that. Are you going to publish it? And I said there's too much plagiarism. But I only plagiarize from the best.
Well, at least you admit it. So you're not lying in that respect.
That's right. Oh, no. Not at all.
That's right. I know, Father. Anyway, yeah, so there's so much there, and I'm inviting people to learn about St. Junipero Serra, and also the fact that Father Matt Guckin went to California and spent quite a bit of time there. How long were you there, Father? That was a great trip for you.
Oh, sorry, I get melancholy when I think it was such a great time in my life. It's the best time in my life. Really, probably the best time of my life. And I've had a great life. I put in for a year and I got 6 months. So I spent 4.5 months in Carmel. And I kept a great journal, which I look at every day. I spent 2 weeks in LA with a friend of mine who's a priest in Los Angeles, just in Glendale, California. I spent 2 weeks in Santa Barbara. I could spend my life in Santa Barbara with the Franciscans at Mission Santa Barbara. And then I spent 2 weeks in Rancho Palos Verdes, which is in the southern part of Los Angeles. And so I used those, I set that all up ahead of time and used those as launching off points to go visit all the missions while I was out there.
Hey, I have a question then. Somebody is listening, and I would say I'm included in this group because I'd love to go back to California and visit these places. But if somebody's listening and is thinking they'd like to make this trip, so would you have any specific recommendations? I know you said Carmel, that's a place they have to go visit. Is there somebody that they could get in touch with that you know, or just some recommendation that may help them in planning a trip like that?
I think a good starting point would be the Serra Club, Serra International. While I was in Carmel, matter of fact, my first day in Carmel, there was a pilgrimage. They get a lot of pilgrimages out there, but it was the Serra International that was doing a pilgrimage that was stopping at Carmel. It's hard for us, Anne and Bob, to understand just how much Serra means. Like when we study, say, St. John Neumann here in Philadelphia,
right?
We think of the school system and him being the 4th bishop of Philadelphia. When you study Serra, it's not just about the religion, it's about the very state itself. And then there's just this romantic image. I mean, he came from Spain, and then traveled all the way across the country, and then they say he traveled about 25,000 miles on foot, or on foot, or on an animal. It's just incredible. But those missions that he established up and down the coast, they form the spine of the 6th biggest economy in the world.
Really?
Yes. California is the 6th biggest economy in the world. But his life was like incredible. He was incredible. He was an entrepreneur, but a real servant, and a missionary in the truest sense of the word. Yeah, he was a little man, but a real giant in American history. As a matter of fact, if you go to the Capitol Rotunda down in Washington, D.C., each state gets 2 statues to represent their state's history. his is one of them for California, and Ronald Reagan's the other.
Hey, that says something. Now, I want to just spell his name out for people who have never heard of him before. So again, it is Saint Junipero Serra. That's Junipero. Okay. And Sarah is spelled Serra. So, I mean, you have intrigued me so much to learn more about him, and it makes me want to go visit California. So I think you've enticed a lot of us to enrich our faith and maybe make it a special trip if we're able to. We might not be able to spend 6 months, but
Yeah,
maybe we
right.
can go out there for a couple weeks or something.
Yeah, I would say I visited all the missions and spent time in all of them. To answer your question, I would recommend I would recommend three in particular to see, and they're all very different. On the one hand, I think if you really want to study his life and enter into the beauty of that magnificent state, I think Carmel's a must see. Because there's so much available. There's a great museum that's there in Carmel, at the Carmel Mission, the gorgeous courtyard, and you're real close to the Pacific Ocean, and in a beautiful little, almost like a crescent moon shaped beach. Beautiful. But that's where he's buried, and a lot of the archives are there. The second place I would recommend is Mission Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is about 90 miles north of Los Angeles. It's a decent sized community, to be sure. It's known as the Queen of the Missions. It's a beautiful mission as well. I'm sort of partial to Carmel, but it's a beautiful mission as well. And then I would recommend the first one that I went to. I just love it. I went there a number of times while I was out there. San Juan Capistrano, where the swallows come back.
Oh, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
March 19th, right around March 19th. It's a beautiful mission. Yeah, really charming, to be sure. And they're all pretty close to the ocean with just a couple of exceptions. And then when I was out there, I mentioned a man, Father Ken Lavaroni. He was my director. He directed me and pointed me in the right there. And so I would send him a copy of those manuscripts as I completed them. And, he gave excellent feedback. And again, he was the vice postulator for the cause. At the canonization of Sarah, you can watch it on YouTube. There's somebody who actually hands the papers to the Pope at the canonization mass. It's Father Ken. He's a Franciscan priest, was a diocesan priest out there for 20 years, and for the last 20 years has been a Franciscan. He lives at Mission San Juan Bautista. And again, I could just talk forever, but Mission San Juan Bautista is where the end of the movie Vertigo is filmed. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Vertigo with Jimmy Stewart. It's oftentimes film experts will claim that's the best movie ever, for example.
I have to look that one up. No,
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
It's a real thriller, but the end of it is filmed there. And then there's Mission Dolores, which is another way of saying Mission San Francisco. It's right by the Dolores River. It's in the Mission District of San Francisco. It's the oldest standing building in the city of San Francisco. Beautiful little mission, which is incredible given the earthquakes that they've had and the fires that they've had out there because of the earthquakes. So, but if I were to name my top three to, must see, Carmel number 1, Santa Barbara number 2, Juan Capistrano number 3.
Well, I might come back to you again and ask you more questions because you have intrigued me enough to want to go out there, my family and I, to go visit, because I do love California from when I went and visited before, and it just sounds wonderful. Hey, I have an idea. Now, I know you're going to do another series. You said in addition to 10 plagues for 10 days, and now you have the one that's coming up that you're working on the devil. Hey, why don't you do one on Saint Junipero Serra?
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a great topic that people would really be interested in.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm always amazed at the people back east here who know very little of they call them our Junipero out there. I mean, it's really endearing. I would agree with that. I don't know if that would be enough. It would be catchy enough to grab people's attention here on the East Coast.
Okay.
But I would be glad to. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
no,
I
I
would
think
be glad,
because you're so
especially with the.
enthusiastic about it, him, and I just think it would be a good, we as Catholics need to stay educated about the different saints and catechesis and ways that we can enrich our lives to be better people for God, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so I just
I
think it
agree.
sounds like a good idea.
And
Not that I'm telling you what to do.
right. No. I'm always open to ideas because that's how I learn. But again, that section I put in there, which wasn't my idea, by the way, Junipero Serra and the new evangelization. By any chance, Father Chris Walsh?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chris is a good friend of mine. And when I was sort of putting ideas together before I went, because I knew I wanted to write a book, or I didn't want to write a book, but I knew I needed to anchor myself every day to study, and that the fruit of that was the book. Father Chris said, why don't you write a section or chapter on Junipero Serra and the new evangelization? And at first I was like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. But as I got into it, I thought, wow, there's a lot of I want to give you one example, but there's a lot of material that I could build on that. And I don't mean to offend either of you by saying this, but one of the people I interviewed was Monsignor, I think his name is Monsignor Weber, but he is the archivist for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, a true character, lives at Mission San Fernando Rey, just outside of LA. Anyway, he's written over 40 books on Sarah's life. And Monsignor said to me, he told me a story where Sarah was speaking with an Indian chief. And as Sarah was speaking with him, the man started to go to the bathroom. And, just really no civilization at all. Not that he was being disrespectful of Sarah, but instead it was like, wow, there's very little in terms of civility here. But the way Sarah handled that was Sarah continued to dialogue with the man and didn't just sort of thumb his nose and walk away. I think so much in our culture is and I taught for so long,
mm-hmm.
We've regressed in terms of civility, and it's very easy for us to thumb our nose at that and say, this is beneath us, so to speak. Well, Sarah didn't do that. Instead, he engaged it, as Bob was saying earlier, okay, this is what we're dealing with here. Okay, then we have our work cut out for us, as opposed to disengaging and walking away. And I think there's things like that we can learn from Saint Junipero Serra, and apply to our current modes of evangelization.
Well, I think I could be wrong, but I think what you're telling us is that all of us, I think we live in our own little bubble sometimes about the way people live and think and breathe and act and culturally and all of that stuff. I mean, and when we're trying to meet people, and we are going to be offended sometimes, and we are going to be caught off guard sometimes, and we are going to be uncomfortable, right? Yeah. Right, Father? I mean, we are going to be uncomfortable. And
if I could just cut you off there, Ann, only because it is, and it's not because the people are malicious. I think in terms of language today, I mean, how many times do you just in the course of the day hear 4-letter words dropped around, and you get so used to it that you don't even see how profane it is.
Right.
But I also think it's not that people are malicious. It's just these are their habits today. And so rather than like just disengaging and walking away and living in our own little bubble. Sarah did not do that. Junipero Sarah engaged that and had the virtue of patience to work with that and elevate people and really vastly improve the standard of their living, you know.
And I think we're all called in some ways to do that. It's kind of getting out of ourselves, if I'm right, Father. I mean, and meeting people where they are. Now, doesn't mean that we have to become like everybody we meet, right? I mean, we're still who we are. We know right from wrong according to our faith, but you know, it's trying to walk with people, right? Accompaniment. You hear that word a lot, especially with our current Holy Father uses that word, spiritually accompanying people where they are. So,
and it's not just you mentioned according to our faith, right? It's also according to reason. And I think that's really important. If you go back to this past weekend's gospel, the second reading was a plea for us to be able to give reasons for what we hope in, right? And so we should also be thinking through things like, and so for example, if we look at say the Beatitudes of Jesus. When Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the land," right? I think we should try to make sense of that. Like, first of all, we have to understand what he means by meekness, and essentially what our Lord means is having great self-control. Well, it's very reasonable, and it'll serve us well to be men and women who are in control of our passions, that our passions are governed by reason. And that's just one example. So it is according to our faith, but I'm always looking at our faith and trying to understand, well, how is this reasonable? And how is this actually going to improve the lives of those who we serve?
Yeah. That's a good goal. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I feel so enriched with this conversation. Makes me want to really learn more about Saint Junipero Serra. And I know he has a big connection with priestly formation, because isn't there this Serra organization? And I know that Father DeLacy and others within the Archdiocese of Philadelphia are also bringing people into that organization, if I'm correct.
He is, yeah. He's an amazing Father DeLacy. He's going to have a church named after him sometime. He's a bit of a hero of mine and a saint himself. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Father asked me to give a talk to the Sarans on one of these Zoom calls, I think on June 19th, if I'm not mistaken. And he's asking me to connect, like you hear of the Sarah Club or Sarah International, and you forget that he was a person, that Junipero Serra was a person. And the whole point of Junipero Serra being the patron of such organizations is that he was the very things I've been talking about for the past 45 minutes. He was a driven man. He was a missionary. He was a patient man. He was a man who engaged a culture that did not know Christ, yet alone believe in him. Well, I think we find ourselves in a similar predicament in many ways in Western culture, Western civilization, and particularly in the modern world. Like, we're looking at this COVID-19, and I've heard priests say it's like people are going to come back in droves, and I'm not so sure. When we reopen for business, I'm not so sure we're not going to actually lose people, as their habits have become calcified in other ways. Like, they kind of like it sitting home watching Mass, if they watch Mass at all. Like, so I think on the other side of this lockdown, we may find ourselves in a more secularized society, right? So that's my
pray to God we don't, right? But it could be, and we lift that prayer up to God that that this pandemic will make all of us realize more that we do love church and the sacraments and our priests and this faith life, right? I mean, I'm praying to God that it does turn out that way, but But it's better to be honest all the time, isn't it?
Always.
It's better to really just face the truth. And I know I like that about you, Father.
Well, it's my favorite. I'm not like a Bible quoter. God does not desire a holy book. He desires a holy people. But there's one quote I do have memorized, verse I do have memorized. John 8:32, the truth will set you free. Yeah. I mean, hey, look, I'm a weak man. I got problems. I was talking to a woman yesterday from California who said her family was saying how dysfunctional they are. And I said, who's got a functional one? I mean, and then right from the get-go, the first family was dysfunctional. Adam and Eve, and then Cain and Abel. I mean, so like right from the get-go, it's been one dysfunctional family after another, my own included, because we're dysfunctional people. To put it in, like, I don't know, modern language, we're messed up. You remember that book? Remember that book?
Thank God for God.
Yeah, that's a book. That should be a book. But I'm okay, you're okay.
I remember that.
I want to write a book. I'm not okay, and you're not okay, but that's okay.
How did I know that would be the last line?
And I want to change my name to Jim McKay. I think it would be so fun. I'm not okay, you're not okay, and that's okay by Jim McKay.
Jim McKay.
Oh my gosh, it's funny.
I'll buy it. Yeah. And they have to put it on Kindle or Audible for me.
Right. Excuse me.
That's all good.
Oh, we've had such great conversation, haven't we, Bill?
Yeah, we have. This is so much fun, and yeah, Father, I remember when you were at St. Pat's in Malvern for a period of time. I think I was in high school, going off to college, and yeah, just that joyful spirit that you have. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful to encounter again, and so yeah, thank you so much for all your wisdom too. You've got great wisdom about of course Junipero and Saint Junipero and all these just great stuff. I mean, I'm so excited to get to reconnect with you, get to see you again, and hopefully this will be one of many times you'll be on the program. And
it'd be great.
Yeah, this is all about hope. Ann and I say that all the time. We did our very first episode, and this whole program is a God incident. It really is because
our theme is sowing hope into broken hearts, and I said when I heard that, I said, well, I'm in, because that's.
Yeah, and you've done that for us today, Father. You've done that for us today. The other thing is all about stories, and Jesus teaches in stories. He tells stories, and the story that you've told us today is just beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And so thank you for sharing a cross section of your life. And really a pilgrimage almost. You really were on pilgrimage more so than a sabbatical, right?
Yeah. Hey, can I show you something real quick? I just have to stand up for a second.
Yeah.
Get this.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. No, Father, for those listening to the program, you're listening to the voice of Father Matt Guckin. He's a priest in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. But yeah. You said I'm on a pilgrimage. I have this stick. Right here. I didn't plan on doing this. Sorry, we have a couple of big hospitals, Children's Hospital and Presbyterian Hospital and the University of Pennsylvania Hospital. So we hear the sirens all the time. But this stick is a walking stick. Anytime you see Junipero Serra pictured, he has a walking stick. I got this in a state park out there called Garrapato State Park. And I got it last March, and I have it with me here. And so I was on a pilgrimage. It's one of these walking sticks that I got, and I was out there, and I haven't let it go. So that's so cool.
What a great thing! What a great reminder! I know you're going to have that till the end of your life. You can tell that it's a good reminder of the wonderful time that you had when you visited there. I think you're going to be going back again, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
You're going to go visiting.
Yeah, I would. It's this time of year. We're always in Philadelphia. We're always on a bit of an edge because you don't know if you're going to get transferred or not. But I'm not on edge. You leave that to the Lord, but you just never know. if I wasn't, I would go back this summer. But I want this walking stick. I want to be buried with this.
Wow.
I want this because it's just was such a great time in my life. And oh, Bill, I called you Bob earlier.
That's so
Forgive me
good.
for that.
It's all
My
good. It's all
my
good.
mistake.
No,
That's it.
no, it's all
Yeah.
good.
Did you change your name by any chance?
No, but it's all good. I appreciate.
Well, at least he has a new nickname.
Yeah, that's right. You
I
know.
might call him Bob once in a while now.
Yeah.
You should have called me Mark.
No,
And
it's
give
all
me
good.
another name too.
Yeah.
Amy or something.
I always. I've got a good priest.
We'll make a
friend.
joke. Yeah, we're human.
Yeah.
We're all human.
Sorry about. I apologize for that.
Don't be at all, Father. It's all good.
Yeah. Please come back. I want you to come back to Sowing Hope podcast.
I would
And
love to.
now I want to mention to you also, Father, I mentioned at the beginning that I do have this new TV show. Bill is also connected to it too with Fiat Ministry Network called Journeys in Faith. It's on Facebook and YouTube. That's another thing that, Father, you can be a guest or anyone you know that you think might be interested that is a person that would be a good guest.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, I have the name that comes right to mind, Father John Nordeman.
Yeah.
Good guy. Do you know him at all, Father John?
Sounds familiar. He's in our archdiocese.
Yeah, it's unbelievable the work he's done at Lansdale Catholic. He does these Thursday night prayer groups. He's been doing them for a few years. And it gets like 70 kids that come to it for Eucharistic adoration. Wow. And he even does it now he's been doing it virtually. It's incredible the work he was at Penn State. He was at Penn State the same time I was up at Penn State, though we didn't know each other. But just a wonderful man, a great teacher as well. And John's just Father John Nordeman has more integrity than anyone I've ever met.
Wow.
He's just an amazing human being, amazing priest.
I'd love to invite him to be on this podcast and even maybe on Journeys in Faith too.
Yeah, definitely. He's excellent.
Yeah. Thank you for the recommendation.
You're welcome.
So, well, have a blessed, everyone, blessed Ascension Thursday, and we have Pentecost coming up soon. Father, I wondered if you could give us all a blessing. So wonderful to be with you.
I will. Let's just bow our heads and pray for God's blessing. I ask Almighty God, God the Father who created you, God the Son who saved you, and God the Spirit who sanctifies you, to bless you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you both. Thank you both for having me on. This was great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
and very educational too.
Yeah, we learned a lot. And Father, is there any website, anything you want to give them? Any listeners that might want to connect with you or be able to get in touch with you about if they're interested in a copy of that book or anything like that?
Yeah, I've never made that. I should make that available. I'm not looking to make any money off it. I'm just looking to proclaim the good news. And let me ask, are you going to put this on Facebook, this podcast, the link to the podcast?
Yes, it'll be on Facebook.
If you put it on there, you can put a copy of my book on there as well. Because you have that link, right?
Bill, can we put it on the...
I can put it in the show notes, yeah.
The show notes? Yeah. That might be the easiest way. Yep. I'll send it to Bill to put in the show notes.
That'd be great. Yeah, because it's just, again, there's no charge or anything like that. But I think it is a good way to talk about the life of a saint. It's also, if you do read it does. I do put some graphic images in there of the destruction that's been done to some of the missions. Just to give you an idea. Also, I do a good job of explaining colonialization as well.
Yeah, that's great. So look for that, listeners. Look for that in the show notes. You'll find it in the show notes of the podcast, of the uploaded podcast on our Podbean. So that's where you'll find more information about it. But I appreciate both Father Matt and Ann for your great time tonight, and just being so faith-filled during these tough times for our country and world. And just so uplifting and sowing that hope into people's hearts. So yeah, just really appreciate both of you, and thank you so much for all your time tonight, and just fun and dedication to the Lord. So I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you too, Bill, and thank you so much, Father Matt. Come back again.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Bill.
Yes, well, this has been an episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio, and so thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, from both Ann DeSantis and myself, I'm Bill Snyder. Keep beating to your Catholic heart and sowing hope into broken hearts. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and anndesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Ann DeSantis 2.
Okay.
Patchwork Heart Ministry and Fiat Ministry Network invite you to discover your mission. A brand new in-depth monthly video series featuring engaging Catholic speakers who will challenge you to live your life abundantly. For only $25 a month, you will receive a personal monthly mission, including 3 full-length inspirational talks that build upon a new theme each month. Sign up for the Discover Your Mission tier at patreon.com/patchworkheartministry today.